very watchful in how and what we say. Okay, well, good morning, or good day, or good afternoon to those watching through live stream. We thank you so much for tuning in. This is Beth Israel JMI, Jewish Ministries International, coming to you from Honolulu, Hawaii. I'm Rabbi Daniel, and we are blessed to be here in this Shabbat and having our Torah class. My topic this morning is a continuation of the topic that we began actually a couple of weeks ago. It's on the advantage of the Hebrew language. And speaking about the Hebrew language, when we use words carefully, it's one thing. But when we do not use words carefully and calculating, as well as timely, there's a time and a season under heaven for everything, and sometimes we just blurt things out, or sometimes we think that this is the opportunity to say and to do something. But whenever we're going to say something, if we do not say it carefully and calculating, it will not accomplish the intent of what we intended those words to do. And the reason why is that God is watching how we deal with people. And He will not allow your words, if they come from a heart that's full of pride or arrogance, those words to go into effect. Because your words are not healing words. Your words are not calculating. Your words are not brought forth carefully. The Word of God teaches, let the words of my mouth and that which I'm meditating to say first be acceptable to Him. So when you're going to speak to someone, first of all, think about it in terms that you're going to talk to God first. And it's got to go through Him before it goes to someone else. Otherwise, what you're going to do is you're going to cause damage, and you're going to pay the consequences for causing that damage. Now, this is not the way the world thinks, because the world still thinks in terms of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. You did this to me, and I'm going to get even, and that's not ever been God's way. And there has to come a time when we look at God's way of doing things. And so this was kind of like my start of my message a couple of weeks ago. And I mentioned also that before creation there was no one to speak to. So why did God use speech? Why did He have to start speaking, if there was no one to speak to? Isaiah 55:9, for as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher. So God already anticipated that He's going to create mankind, and mankind's going to need to have communications, right? So this is where I think the whole idea began. Speech, folks, is a process of revealing that which is hidden in your heart or in your mind. Because it is hidden, it cannot be seen. It is a non-physical sense, but it becomes revealed the moment that we speak forth those thoughts or those words. And so it was the same with God. And the Lord thought that there should be light, and He said what? So He thought, and those thoughts were hidden, right? But the moment that He said, let there be light, it says, and it was so. It became a reality. It was seen in the physical. And so our words will be seen in the physical. When you say something, someone will either smile or they will what? They will withdraw. You'll see it in the countenance of their face that you just did some damage, and possibly you just took a few seconds of their life away. You just murdered them by the words that you said to them. The harshness of those words, the tone of your words. Maybe you had the right words, but they were piercing. They were like a sword. And so God did not honor them because you chose to bring words that would be hurting and damaging or make a person feel guilty. And oftentimes, because we cannot reach the actual person that has perpetrated perhaps something, we take it out on the innocent. And someone that can't really do anything about it, you know. I mean, they were put in the situation where they happen to just be there. So to attack an innocent person would be something that would be in the high extreme of the area of a no-no. So that which is in our mind is considered hidden to the persons or the viewer or the hearer. But once we begin to speak, we reveal that which was hidden, okay? So the speech of that idea is now available to everyone within sound of your voice. Psalms 92:5, how great are your works, O Lord, and is saying, how great are your thoughts, for they are very deep. And that's what we want. We want to speak great words, coming from great thoughts. And when it says there, your thoughts are very deep, meaning that the thoughts of God are calculating. And so our thoughts need to be calculated. And, you know, it's sad, but oftentimes it's the children that pay the price, and we take it out on the kids, and not really calculating that the children are so innocent. They don't understand why you're speaking with them in such harshness and such a strong voice. Now, all the languages but one created by God were created by God in the Tower of Babel. God did not create the Hebrew language in the Tower of Babel. It already existed. And so all the languages of the world, whatever language you speak, it's a language of confusion. There's only one language that's not a language of confusion, and that's the language that God spoke to Abraham and that God spoke to Paul in the New Testament. How could he think of creating a language of confusion? No, he created languages of confusion because as a penalty for people wanting to be so arrogant that they could believe that they could be God themselves, you know. Okay, so the languages that were based, these languages are based on conveniences and convention. Convention part meaning there's every language has a protocol. So they're still in order to all of these various languages. All languages except Hebrew could not relate the word to the object except as an agreed protocol. In the Hebrew language, you could in fact relate the word to an object, because every word in Hebrew has a deep, profound meaning and understanding. There is no possibility in any other language. Okay? It could only, again, all languages except Hebrew They could not relate the word to the object except as an agreed protocol that this sound meant this object. Okay. The name Hebrew, as you have there in your note, Hebrew, ayin, bet, resh, in yod. It comes from the word eber, E-B-E-R, and it means from the other side. So where did Abraham come from? He came from the other side of the Euphrates River, right? And Abraham was not a Hebrew yet. He was from Mesopotamia, from Ur, which is today Iraq. And so he was, in a sense, if he would be today, people in Iraq would say that he was an Iraqi because he was from there. But the moment that he came from the other side, God called him what? Hebrew. So Hebrew means from the other side. And this was the language of Abraham. The Hebrew who came from the other side and began to commune with God, and God began to commune with him. So in Hebrew, the word eber, it could be with a B or a V, a vav, ever, or eber. Ayin, bet, and resh. Those three letters would be the letters of eber, or eber. And where this was his language, the language that he spoke was the language of eber. He was also a descendant of Eber, E-B-E-R, who preceded the Tower of Babel. So the Hebrew language also came from the other side of the threshold of the world's meeting the non-world of God's mind. So it all started in the other side. And the other side came to this side to meet the world that was not part of what God began in the other side. You take the word over or over, O-V-E-R, O-B-E-R. It is also used meaning the word sin or transgression. Since a transgression implies, what does a transgression imply? When we as believers transgress, we cross over the line, right? And there's a line that divides the normal action from the prohibited action. Going back to the language, when we speak arrogant or tough to someone, we have crossed over the line. And that's where God cannot honor, because that's the line of transgression. All right? So using the same letters but in a different order is the word erev. What does the word erev mean? This is the word meaning not the two sides of the line. There's two sides of the line, the right side, the wrong side. But the point in which the two sides meet. Okay, so erev is used to mean evening, right? Okay, so before evening there's what? Day, right? But then there's evening. So there's a line in between. And so this is where the word erev comes in, because the word erev, this is the word meaning not the two sides, one side or the other side, but it is the point in which the two sides meet. So this is really important, because oftentimes we don't realize that we are so close. If we're not calculating of our words, we're so close to getting into the wrong side, right? Because that's where night meets day. We are not the children of what? We're not the children of night, spiritually speaking. We're the children of day. So when you cross over, by just one word that you would say to someone that is harsh, or is wrong, or is embarrassing, or is putting the person on the spot. The fact that you did this is that you reached that point that you were already in the erev. All right? And how is it that, spiritually speaking, we get to the erev? If you're walking in the day, you don't want to be in that line, right? Because you might just cross over real quickly. How is it that you get to the erev line? It's what you're meditating during the daytime. If what we're meditating is acceptable to the Lord, then you'll never be in that position where you're getting too close to making a mistake and offending someone, where later on you will regret it. And there's a lot of people that do not regret it because they're hard of hearts. Their heart's already gotten so hard that they keep hurting people. And they enjoy it now. I mean, that's what the Nazis did. You know, they reached an erev point where they became numb to killing children, hurting anyone, hurting the innocent. So it begins in how we wake up in the morning. We wake in the morning with what? Do we say, this is the day that the Lord has made, and I'm going to rejoice and be glad in it? Or do we say, this is the day I'm going to get even? That's what happens. This is the day I'm going to straighten out the facts. Who are we to straighten out the facts? This is the day I'm going to pour the hot coals. No, God says, that's my business. Vengeance is mine. You start getting too close to that, you're crossing that line there, and you're the one that's going to be the bigger loser in the end, because you'll never have that 1,000-year, what was it that Hitler wanted, the 1,000-year what? The 1,000-year reign of Volkswagens and chickens in the oven. He never got that. It was just about 10 years of stuff that he did that was really hugely terrible and hurting and devastating. And he amassed such great power. Nations trembled in his presence. He was making a statement, but with every statement that he made, it was going to swallow him up. And it's going to bring shame to his country. And to this day, Germany is suffering the shame of what took place in their own country. And I think that in the end, this is why God has to destroy this entire earth and turn it into a ball of fire. Because men have turned what he created, this beautiful planet for us to enjoy and to serve him, and we turn it into our own thing. This is mine. Nothing is ours. It is all his, including the gold. What will we do without the gold? The gold is the currency that is used in nations. What about the cattle? It's all his, the goats, the sheep. He created it all. Tell me a chicken that he did not create. Huh? You eat chicken, you're eating God's food. Here in Hawaii, we have taro. You're eating God's taro. It's not your taro. All right? You're Puerto Rican, you eat pateles, and those bananas were God's bananas, okay? All right, so we're eating his food, and we become arrogant and thinking that it's all ours. No, we've just been entrusted. It's just been alone. Your children are alone to you. You had no power to create life. It was God that foreknew you before the foundation of this whole earth. And if he already foreknew you, that means that your parents had very little to do about this. Is that God wanted you to be here to have a purpose and to be a caretaker, just like he told Adam. He says, "You're a caretaker here. It's not all yours. You do what's right, you stay here. And if you don't do what's right, you're going to be out of here." And he did not do right, so what? He was out of there. So this word here, erev, becomes really important because we usually just say it's erev, it's evening time. Erev is used to mean evening, the time that the day ends and night begins. And so there is something that's important here because Brother Minister Eugene brought it up, and I brought it up last night in the message. It has to do with mix or mixture. When we begin to mix and bring a mixture in, we're adding something, we're mixing something in. And so this word erev, again, it has to do with the mingling now, because there is a mingling that's taking place of day and night in the erev moment. So when you see a little bit of night and day, they're together, aren't they? They're mingling together, they're mixing together. All right? So we call it the twilight. Hence, the name of the evening prayer in Hebrew is Ma'ariv, M-A-R-R-I-V. It also means, Ma'arev, it also means Arabs. And the word Arabs means that there's a collection of many people who existed in the Middle East. Not all Arabs are the same. And they were mixed up. And they were mixed up, if you looked at ancient history, they were mixed up with many battles. Mixed up through battles. There's some nations that we know that they've had 1,000 years of fighting, of war. So this word again, ma'arev, twilight or mingling, is another word for the word Arab, and the word Arab again has to do with a mix of languages of people that have intermingled themselves, involved in war. So when you reach that Erev moment, you are reaching a moment of war. If you don't do what I say, I'm going to go to war against you. You see? It's that you're no longer living in the day. And you're living in the Erev, and the Erev, is being swallowed up by darkness. And pretty soon there won't be any more what? No more light, because the darkness has swallowed the day. And this is where your hearts become so hardened that you're not really open any longer for truth. You begin to say, well, that sounds like truth, and this sounds, but actually I'm overwhelmed with so much of the darkness, but we don't call it darkness. What was it? Michael Jackson's multi-million dollar album, Bad is Good. And the Bible says, I think in Timothy, that Satan turns good into bad. And bad can be turned into good if we turn to the Lord. What we need to know is this. Maybe we've reached a heart that's become like an atheist. We've looked at so many mixtures and mingling of so many gods that we're so confused. And naturally you're going to be confused because all the languages are languages of confusion. Have you heard people saying, I'm confused? Well, God's people should not be confused, because you shall know the truth, and the truth will not confuse you. The truth will set you free. But when you're in such a state of confusion, when truth comes, truth does not make sense to you. And you really begin to think about, well, that sounds like maybe it's truth, but I'm not going to welcome it. Why? Because I've already gone the deep end. I'm committed. And this is why a lot of people say so far to the left that they can't get out of the fact that abortion is killing babies. But they're so deep into it that they really think that what's more important is a woman's right to decide that that child should die. And this is why one of the state's governor came up with this idea that you should be able to have your baby, and then after the baby is born, then let the woman decide whether she wants it to die. Does that sound like, what did President Trump said that was? He didn't say that word exactly. He said another word that is murder. But it is murder. I mean, if the baby is really born, right? You're killing a baby that is born. What's the difference between it being the process of coming out of the womb and in the womb, and the moment that it comes out, it's a baby, but if it hasn't come out, it's not a baby yet? Mm-hmm. Well, this is, if you ask me, well, I thought about this a long time ago. If you went to the police department and you ask them when are the demons out, they'll say, what are you talking about? Oh, excuse me. When does the crime actually begin? And they'll say it usually begins from 11 to 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. During that time, it's the heavy crime area. That's why I call it, that's the release of the demons that are being released. You see, demons don't activate themselves too much in the daytime, except that the demon would be a daring rat, because a rat will rattle on you. A rat will rattle on truth and turn truth into a lie. That's why I always, because I used to do play acting, and one of the plays was, are you a man or a mouse? Yeah, let's not be a mouse. Let's be a real man of God. Let's be like the men of Issachar. They understood, because these men studied God's word. They understood what was really going on, and they had the solution. They had the answer. And the answer can only really come from God, because everyone else that doesn't seek God is in a state of confusion. All right? So this word, another word, here's the word eruv or erbuv, B-U-V. I-R-B-U-V. This Hebrew word means a mixture of two. Now you're getting the mixture of the day and you're getting the mixture of the night, because you reach that point of Erev. All right? So this is where Satan came in, because he mixed in the Word of God, right, with lies. When you dare to mix truth with lies, you become like a professional politician. And many people that are not politicians are professional politicians. They are even much better than a professional politician because they practice it every day. At least a politician, if he does this every single day, like these two that have taken over Nancy Pelosi's job, but not really, you know what I'm talking about, is that they're so polished at mixing truth with light with darkness that they have actually taken over, as it were, the position of Nancy Pelosi, and she's afraid to act against them. So this word here means a mixture of the two. It was bad enough that we're reaching the point of Erev, where night is meeting day, but now we're reaching out into the darkness and bringing darkness into the light. Now, would you put your seal of approval and say, you know, I believe in transgender? Or would you put your seal of approval and say, I believe that God's angels should date Satan's angels? How about that one? Would you put your seal of approval on that one? And say, you know, I'm going to set up a date for both of you guys at Ruby Tuesdays? Would you? What would it look like for one of God's angels to sit down and have dinner at Ruby Tuesday? It doesn't make sense, right? But yet we do it. This is why the Lord says, do not be unequally mixed, mingled, or yoked together with an unbeliever. So, but what does light have to do with darkness? Don't allow yourself to reach that point of Erev. Because if you reach that point of Erev, you will go to the next level, and that next level of Erbuv is the level where now you're really mixing darkness with light. We may not have enough time in this lesson to get to where this message really wants to get. But the reason why we have so many denominations, and the reason why there's a rejection of the deeper truth of God, is that the church reached that point of Erev. And the church is no longer pure in their way of teaching, expounding the Word of God, and you shall know the truth, and only the truth will set you free. So when you go before the judge, and the judge says, what? Do you swear to tell what? And what? And nothing but the truth. So help you God, because if you are not going to say the whole truth, what's going to happen is that God's vengeance is going to come. And when you have 125 translations of the English Bible, and you have thousands and thousands of denominations, and you ask for the true one to stand up, they will all stand up, because they believe they all have the truth. But there is the mingling, there's the Erev, and then the sadness of there is the Erbuv. There's the actual mixture. And that actual mixture that has the same word of Arab has to do with the fact that you have a fighting spirit. And you spend your whole day thinking about a way to fight this thing here. How about if we just do it God's way, and God says, you don't have to actually fight. For the battle is the Lord's. It's not by might nor by power, but it is by my Spirit, saith the Lord. But you see, we allow ourselves to go from day to erev, and that's where the problem comes. Okay, so what are the steps again? I started out. The first step is understanding what? We're people of day and not of night. And then we learn about the word erev. Erev means what? It's that border line that we cannot afford to cross. Because when we cross it, now we are what? Yeah. Okay, absolutely. We're mixing things up. And when we're mixing, we're ready to do war and fight each other. Mm-hmm. Okay, when someone says, you want to bet? What does it mean to bet? Yeah, challenge, okay? It means that each person puts up something, right? In the more understanding way, when you bet something is you put up money in a pot, and then the winner takes what? All. And that is called in Hebrew hitarev. Hitarev. H-I-T-A-R-A-V. Hitarev. Okay, so we'll get to that word in a moment again, but you understand what that word is now, right? So there's another word is Orev, O-R-E-V, Orev, and that is that this is a cosigner. A person accepts the obligation, right, of a borrower. That if the borrower, the one that's borrowing the money, is in default, he agrees to pay. And the person that agrees to pay is called the Orev. So why is he called Orev, similar to Erev? It's just O, and you replace it with an E, it's Erev. But now a person that is co-signing is called an Orev. Any idea why? It is because he is what? He is mixing with the borrower. He's mixing with the borrower. Has anyone ever approached you that you never expected and asked you, like someone called me the other day, can I borrow $800? I mean, I've had people throughout the years that wanted to borrow something, right? But that's what you call, you're mixing with the borrower, and you're accepting the borrower's what? Or responsibility. Now you're accepting a responsibility that was not yours before. And it is a calculating acceptance of this responsibility, but it is also a chance thing, because the chances are, yes, that he may pay, but he may not pay. That he's telling the truth that he's going to pay, but how often when payment is due, they'll say, I'm sorry, I cannot pay. or they disappear, period. You can't find them any longer. Does that happen frequently? Frequently enough to say that happens too often? Okay, so this is the reason why the Lord is against us borrowing money to begin with. Because we're doing an orev, we're doing a mixture here that's going to put us on a spot that we're going to, because if this was your business, you would have to be a bail bond guy, right? What does the bail bond guy do? He puts up, is he taking a calculated risk? Yeah, he is, because the guy may just bail out and they'll disappear, you know. And that happens all the time. By the way, Beth died, right? What's dog's wife, Beth died, yeah. But what you don't know is the horror of his side, the manipulation that was taking place in his side. Yeah. And the fact that I know some very good people that were bail bonds, people that would be shrewdly, their business would be taken away from them because this guy was in a position to take what belonged to someone else. And this is why I always say, in the end, we're going to pay some kind of price. And even though you want to help someone, if you're not a bail bond guy, then that's your business. You shouldn't be out there, you know, putting your hard-earned money on the line, okay? So, orev. Now, these are, I would say, a few examples of the relationship that exists between words in Hebrew. All words are related. It just requires a small little bit of imagination on our part to gain a larger insight. So usually when someone in English, let's say for example, says, "Oh, it's almost twilight out there," we don't think of the spiritual relationship, the messages that are there. But in Hebrew, you know right away that this means war, and this means if you get too close to this and you get too close to that. This is the difference between the English language and every other language that's in a state of confusion, the biblical language. Because the biblical language has God's understanding and explanation so that we don't fall and get into these pitfalls. Turn around and tell someone, I'm glad we're here together to learn. We certainly are. So all the words of God are actually related. It just requires, again, a bit of understanding and even spiritual imagination. For example, if the letter Bet could never exist unless the letter Aleph was there first. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey. When you reach Hey, it has to have all the previous letters inside of it. So all the meanings of every Hebrew letter are in every succeeding letter, every letter that's coming. Therefore, when you finally decide to make a word out of those letters, then you have such a more deeper, profound understanding of the words that you're going to say. Let the words, how about if we put it this way? Let the letters that form words in your mouth be acceptable unto you, unto him. So the study of the Holy Scriptures in a translation is incomparable to that of the original. When you get it a translation, okay, what translation do you have? Because I just made this statement, and I'll repeat the statement. The study of the Hebrew of the Bible in a translation is incomparable to that of the original. So when you ask someone, what is the translation you're using, what else could you say? What else are you learning that is wrong? You got it? What else are you learning that brings confusion? Because the only language that doesn't bring confusion is the Hebraic language, the original language that came from God. Now this is very difficult because everyone's proud of their language, right? But you see, this is a temporary thing. Your language, whatever language you speak, doesn't make sense to someone in the other side of the world. You try to talk to them, they'll be confused. They say, I don't know what you're saying. I don't think I could take the time to try to learn what you're saying. You don't know what I'm saying. I don't know what you're saying. I think we better not say anything because we're going to get confused. Because I'm already getting a little confused. Do you see? We're still living, in a sense, under the influence of the Tower of Babel, confusion. I see a lovely man from China and I can't talk to him even though he's a believer. And he cannot talk to me. He's silent, I'm silent. The Korean's silent and I'm silent. Is that good? Now look, this is the year 2019. We're going to 2020 and we're still under that influence? Can't there be something better? There is something better. And that is that we need to at least find is there an original language that we can learn from where there's deeper meaning and deeper understanding so that I can communicate in my own language that I speak today in a way that I have my back supported by God. That the words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart, now it is acceptable to Him. Now He's supporting and backing me up 100%. Okay, now so much is lost in the understanding that I would encourage you who desire, if you really desire to be a person of biblical understanding, that you at least make an effort, those that are watching right now, because those that are here, they have made an effort, and they've made an effort to study and to learn the things that I'm teaching. So those of you that are watching through live stream, please make an effort to contact me. Don't just sit there. If you contact me, that's even better, because sometimes we can't be on the air or there's technical problems. But if you contact me, at least through email, we can communicate and bring the teachings to you. Now, there's an old idea that continues to go around. This idea is that Yeshua was exclusively an Aramaic speaker. And folks, that idea has been tossed around for I don't know how long. And now they have Aramaic Bibles so that you can learn the language of Jesus' day. But I'm going to challenge that this morning, because I think we have biblical basis. The Gospel of Matthew was written first, not in Aramaic, but in Hebrew. Okay? So if it was not written in Aramaic first, and it's written in Hebrew first, you always want to go first to the what? To the original. So again, for the Christian, one of the greatest, I think, changes in the history of Christianity is one of the greatest changes is that if the Christian world would be able to return back to its Hebraic roots, that would be an amazing historic change if the church can do that. And you know, many in the church are actually doing that. And the Lord is drawing them slowly but surely back to the roots. Because this is not something that anyone can do, but only God. Christians around the globe, they're taking our weekly Torah portion, such as the one that Minister Eugene taught you this morning. And they're learning and receiving other teaching materials. And our plans are that by the beginning of this coming year, this new year, our Hebrew Torah Institute will be ready to reach more people through our Torah scholars that are upcoming here. And our Torah scholars are actively each week, they are building and creating our new Hebrew Torah Institute. We hope that we would have be able to do a presentation of our school in October. And they're endeavoring to meet at least once a week between now and then to upgrade our school to at least a certificate or a diploma level. Now, the tradition of our American or the American founding fathers, as you know, some of the history, they were not atheists. They believed in the Word of God. And so these founding fathers that wrote up and drew up the Constitution, they were steeped in the study of Israel as well. And even the language going back to Plymouth, the Plymouth plantation, the governor of Governor Bradford, he studied Hebrew. This is going back to Plymouth. Remember Plymouth Rock? That's where the pilgrims arrived there. So when you consider that the founding fathers of the United States were believers in Christ, believers in the God of Israel, their hearts were greatly connected with Israel. And as the pilgrims began to arrive there at Plymouth Rock, they would be met by Governor Bradford, who had studied Hebrew, and also Benjamin Franklin. He proposed our national seal, or the national seal of the United States, to picture the Israelites crossing the Jordan. And if you look in the internet, you will find some of those drawings of the original currency was Israelis crossing the Jordan. So it was not just that these founding fathers believed in God. They had embraced Israel to that extent that they realized that it's indispensable that this new nation would be fully and completely connected to where the Judeo roots, the Christian roots as well, Judaism and Christianity would always be connected with Israel. I think had they done that, much of America today would be speaking Hebrew. That means that much of America would be studying Torah today. That means that many of the denominations would not exist. Isn't that something? You know? So I just wanted to give you that kind of a little bit of historical little bit there so that we can really understand what God was trying to do. But when men begin to interfere, they begin to move from day to what? To Erev. And then they're in danger of crossing over to Orev. And then you're really mixing everything in. So now you have the society of this Bible and the society of that Bible and society of 100 Bibles and wow. I don't know. I know in China there's many dialects of Chinese. Maybe there is at least 2 or 3 primaries. Someone know what they are? And Mandarin and then one more, I think. And Yechua, okay. But then there is many other ones there. How about if you had 100 Chinese languages? Would they be able to? No, I don't speak that 79th language, you know. How about in Hawaiian? Would you like to have 100 different languages in Hawaiian? No, the Hawaiian people don't need 100 languages. They just need one, you know. And they got one, you know. But if you had 100, you know, then they bring a lot of confusion, a lot of setbacks, no real advancement, you know. And in a nutshell here, this is what happened is that the United States was on one track only. And someone came by and deviated that track. And when that happened, then we began to get closer to the Ereb line. All right? I'm not going to go any further than that. How much time do I have left? Okay, we have about 7 minutes left. The truth is this much. Hebrew inscriptions, symbols, and even artwork are found all over the United States. And so whether people around the world like it or not, the Star of David, as we know, is in the dollar bill, right? And that was Washington's choice to honor the Jews for being able to finance all the uniforms they needed to fight and the weapons they needed to fight the British. And so there are symbols there. There are all kinds of artwork. They're found all over the nation's capital as well, from statues and even the statue of Moses is found where? In the Supreme Court, in front of the Supreme Court. I'd like to now take a couple of questions before we run out of that time. But first of all, I want to thank those of you that have tuned in today. Thank you so much for taking this, I know, very valuable time to be part of this class. And I pray that you have been blessed and favored of the Lord. If you have a prayer request, please let me know. I'd like to hear from you. You could call me at 808-834-3434. Our website is www.bethisraelministries.com.